Hello, I'm Joseph Napier, Sr. for NAPIERVISION Productions. Today I'm downtown Youngstown at South Walnut Street. As I'm looking eastward, I can't help but be reminded of what used to be the other half of downtown Youngstown. When you look at the border between East and West Federal Streets, you have a history that one would have to look at. So today I'm looking at that history. I'm going back in time and not only asking the question, what happened to the second half of downtown Youngstown, but what led to the demise of downtown Youngstown. I'm turning the camera from South Walnut Street as I look back towards now West Federal Street. The town right now, if you were to come down here and you say, well, what's going on down there? A lot of construction has changed the configuration of the downtown streets. So I can't help but be challenged mentally and challenged to then take a look back on what happened to our downtown area. Downtown area has changed and morphed a lot of different times through the years, if you will. So I'm going to take a small walk and conversate about what led to the demise of downtown Youngstown. Okay? Come with me as I take this short Sunday walk, if you will. I thought I would come downtown Youngstown as the sun is setting, if you will. Kind of like the sunset on downtown Youngstown that used to be. So the demise of downtown Youngstown led to a number of different things. It wasn't just one event. But one thing for certain that you can look at what started the demise of downtown Youngstown. And the first thing was urban renewal. The city, along with a lot of other cities across the country, bought into urban renewal. And the reason why they bought into the concept of urban renewal, because there was a lot of federal dollars that were offered to communities to literally reconfigure their cities in a major way, from bringing in interstate systems and dislocating families, of course, but also it led to businesses being shut down and literally tore down. So as the direction this car is traveling in right now, is which travels to the east, that whole second half of Youngstown was a victim, if you will, of urban renewal. I'm going to talk about a little bit of that and what happened to change the configuration of downtown Youngstown to the point where the retailing industry left this area. Youngstown used to be king when it came to retailing back in the day. I think a lot of people wouldn't argue with me, especially if they know their history. Youngstown was a major commerce player, if you will, in the area of commerce and set business and trading and all that kind of stuff, hence Market Street, if you will. And as I look over my shoulder here, some of the buildings, even up to this day, that were built after the fact and that remain are being sold as we speak, some of them. But it's good to have new tenants move into the buildings. That way they don't remain abandoned, if you will. This building right here, I'm going to stop and pause right now, used to be the Haber Furniture building. I know this all too well because we had Haber Furniture in our home. Haber Furniture used to be located down on the eastern half of downtown Youngstown, as I look back now. But cascading this way, imagine if you will, a whole section, or half, I call it, of your downtown Youngstown, in this case, would be torn down. Do you think it would change things? Yeah, it changed things in a very major way, if you will. As the bulldozers came and claimed businesses along the eastern corridor here, a lot of businesses, of course, had to relocate. And those that couldn't relocate literally shut down. That was the first, if you will, toppling of the dominoes that led to the demise of downtown Youngstown. The second one was in 1975, they're about there, because urban renewal happened in the midway of 65, let's say around 65. The plaza concept was brought to downtown Youngstown, traffic was not allowed to flow from east to west any longer, if you will. So the cutting off of that artery, major artery, with the Federal Plaza project was the second toppling, if you will, of the dominoes, if you will. And then after that, we all know about Black Monday in 1977, when the steel mills were starting to announce they're closing down. That happened as well. But let me take a back up. I have to back up here. I want to do this in succession so you get a real clear understanding of what happened. Phase 1 was urban renewal. Phase 2 was the development of the Eastwood and the Southern Park malls. Phase 3, that led to the demise, was the creation of the Federal Plaza project, if you will. Once that project came online, it put a barrier, if you will, right between the east and the western halves of downtown Youngstown. Traffic could no longer flow fluently from the west to the east any longer. So that's number 3 domino. And the fourth one was the announcement of the closure of steel mills. Between those 4 things, those dominoes toppling, is what led to the demise of downtown Youngstown. Now, although that was going on, there were other things that came along. The building of what was purposed in the beginning as the IBM building, that came along. The United States Post Office came along as well. Plaza Place came in there at some point. It was a part of the new look, if you will, new configuration of downtown. That came along. I want to throw that in there because I don't want to mention or not mention and leave them out. Along the way, other things were built. We had a credit union that was built down here as well. As I continued to walk eastward, there was a credit union that came online down here. That represented a fresh breath because it was a very nice looking building, if I say so myself. I studied architecture and mechanical drawing in junior high school myself, and I just have an affinity for architecture. Over here, that tire shop has been there as long as I can remember because I'm a child of 62. I came along. Let's take another look at the IBM building. It was a very sharp building, if you will, coming online in the late 70s, early 80s, around there. To this day, the United States Post Office still survives. Most of the circulation that goes on, that used to go on, I should say, here, is being done in Cleveland. So when you see your mail going up to Cleveland and it's no longer being processed here, Youngstown was a major processing center for the United States Postal Service. So pretty much all that's left now is the delivering of mail. Over here off my shoulder, you can see Shopping Career Center up on the hill up there. I went to school there. That was a breath of fresh air coming along in the mid-70s, early to mid-70s. I went there for welding, enjoyed it immensely. Did 2 years in that program, squeezed every bit out of it. Now, as I continue to walk towards Penguin City Beer, you see it off in the background. That's another breath of fresh air, a part of a revitalization, I call it, of the eastern half. But as I swing over to this used to be the Job Skill Center we're looking at now. It was kind of like shopping in a way. It was offered to adults as well, to where you can learn new job skills and be more marketable. Quote, get yourself a good job, and work the trades, much like what's going on now. So we had Shopping Career Center, which they now call CCTC, Shopping Career and Technical Center. Job service, the job training facility there has been repurposed through the year. Here is that credit union I'm talking about, but now it's AC Beverage. So there was a reaction to what happened, and they were trying to create new stuff, if you will, and what would come to replace what used to be the other half of downtown Youngstown. But I'm here to tell you, there were so many buildings torn down, back street buildings, if you will, secondary back streets alleyways and stuff like that. Just imagine, as I pivot the camera around, what used to be here. A lot of cities still have their whole downtown areas totally intact. Didn't carve into them like we did. But Youngstown carved into what used to be. And a half of, if I say again, was eliminated and just thrown off into the abyss. That saddens me a little bit. The demise of anything, human life, structures and things that used to be, yeah, traditions, things change. Nothing's going to stay the same forever. That's what they say. Nothing will stay the same forever. Only thing guaranteed in life, they say, is death and taxes. Well, that's definitely true. But as I continue to walk east, I'm going to continue to walk east as I talk about some of the things that happened to Youngstown and its demise in downtown Youngstown, that is. Today I am talking about downtown Youngstown. Youngstown itself, different areas of the city are going through a renaissance in different communities, if you will. Some people don't see that. For instance, it's a jogger jogging down here. It's a Sunday brisk morning. Like I said, I'm shooting on a sunset on Sunday, if you will, to just point a finger at the demise as we start off a new week. And a new attitude is embraced Youngstown. So slowly but surely we're picked ourselves up. We never really died off 100% because Youngstown is tethered or bordered to by 11 other communities. And because we're bordered by 11 other communities, that meant we weren't going to truly die. We just feed off of each other. I'm looking directly at the Social Security Administration building. My mother used to work there. It was located over my shoulder, back on Boardman Street and Commerce Street back in the days. And they decided that they wanted a standalone building. So the Social Security Administration still survives. They have a presence here still in Youngstown. A lot of people saw the early shooting I was doing and wonder what the heck happened to the streets. The streets have been severely reconfigured, if you will. Yeah, they were reconfigured for what's called the Smart 2 project, where an autonomous vehicle was going to ride through downtown streets, drop people off, pick people up. You probably see them in bigger cities. Youngstown used to have 6 lanes coming down west to East Federal, east to West Federal. It used to be 6 lanes, 3 on each side. And if you take away 2 for parking, you had 2 on each side. But that's no longer the case. The Smart 2 project has literally put it down to the configuration down to where there's just 1 lane on each side. Just 1 lane is on each side. But as you see, a lot of busy people coming in to get their party goods at AC Beverage. They're a wholesaler, distributor, if you will, of fine spirits and stuff like that. So a lot of people come on through and get their stuff for parties. It's the place to come and get your gear for party, if you will. As I travel forward, there were some other buildings that came along after urban renewal. Right here is a building that was built. It's an architect firm, to be exact. They built a lot of modern structures around Youngstown. And if you look right beside Penguin City Beer, the way that used to be the Weatherby Coat Factory a lot of years ago, it was brought up by Valley Foods, which I'll show you that building. That came along in the early 80s as well, as an effort to try to populate the second half of what used to be our downtown. I'm going to move more towards that. As you see Penguin City Beer in the background, they're doing good things for the city. A lot of events are held at that building. That building there used to be owned by the Republic Steel Corporation. Gives you a sense of how close manufacturing was, major manufacturing was to downtown Youngstown. Matter of fact, under what we affectionately still call the Market Street Bridge was Wayne United. and also Republic Steel Corporation's payroll offices and hospitals and stuff like that were located up under that bridge. They used to say up under that bridge, it had a life of its own, if you will. And coming down on this end here, here's an old manufacturing facility here that's been repurposed. The Youngstown Flea has come out of the ashes, so to speak, and they're doing good things over there as that building's being spruced up, shaped up, and reinvigorated, if you will. They're still having a lot of different events going on inside there with fleet market experience, if you will. Over here, directly ahead, if you look, is a Valley Foods Company purchased the former Weatherby Coal Factory. And also, Valley Foods had built a free standalone building. I'm going to swing the camera around as the sun is starting to set and it's starting to get a little dark, if you will. Right over my shoulder there on the backside of those hedges there was Valley Foods in the beginning. They had a presence down here in the 80s and into the 90s. And I think there's a small remnants of what used to be Valley Foods. If you look down Andrews Avenue, this is where I am now. I'm at East Federal at Andrews Avenue. That was a lot of manufacturing going down there. They used to have a railroad line back in the day that went down that way parallel. Also, you had steel fabricating plants down there as well. So, matter of fact, if you heard the old tale of Smoky Hollow, the smoke from the manufacturing presence there on Andrews Avenue would find its way to the community. And because it's a slight subterranean community, a valley, if you will, depression, the smoke would settle that way early morning in that community. And that was things that was going on there back in the day. Youngstown has always been a very, very ethnic community. A lot of different things going on in the community. Youngstown's main punch these days is our universities, our medical facilities, our entertainment venues, if you will, are the order of the day. We got some small business going on, such as Dope Cider, that's located right beside Pigman City Beer. And you got other stuff, like I said, the Youngstown Fleet, it still has a presence and doing their thing down there as well. The lower level here, they got it up for sale, I see. That's the architect firm, okay? I'm going to cascade across the street here as I continue to talk about a little bit more of Andrews Avenue. I picked a Sunday to come down here on purpose where there's not a lot of traffic going on. Well, I dare say that the traffic isn't the way it used to be back in the old days. Being a child of the 60s, I witnessed the bustling of downtown Youngstown when it was still a retailing mecca, if you will. Before Southern Park Mall, before Eastwood Mall, if you will, and a lot of pop-up plazas and things like that, all retailing was done right down here in downtown Youngstown. A lot of people think Youngstown was a lot bigger than it really was. Youngstown's population at its height was in 1933. Or I should say 1930. Let's start out the decade. 1930, Youngstown had 170,000 residents. Now that's not a lot of people at all. When you look at Cleveland, Columbus, or Cincinnati, the big 3 C's, Youngstown really didn't have a gigantic population. But what punched out in Youngstown was the fact that on any given Saturday, back in the old days, on any given Saturday, you could have anywhere between 200 and 250,000 people in downtown Youngstown. Now, when I say that, you may not believe that. Youngstown, because it was the only major retailing, if you will, going on in the area, they had everything from shoe shops to bakeries to theaters. All the major theaters were down here. They had 6 theaters going on. We had manufacturing, as I pointed off here, going on here and up under the bridge. And of course, Andrews Avenue, named after a business mogul by the name of Chauncey Andrews. He was known as the mentor to the millionaires. I always mention his name when it comes to doing documentaries because he was. His residency or his mansion was located on Wick Avenue, where Ursuline High School is today. Chauncey was big in railroading and shipping and manufacturing. Chauncey had his hands in just about everything. But as far as the record is concerned, Chauncey gets the credit for being the first millionaire in Youngstown. This man made big money. So when he got older, he became a philanthropist and he gave a lot of those monies away. So in doing that, the city honored him and named the street after him. Andrews Avenue, named after Chauncey Andrews, if you will. Now to get back with how, and I want you to use your imagination here, coming down here where the car's coming from now, you go a little further, that's known as Hemrod. And at the corner of Hemrod and Wilson Avenue, you have one of our 4 train stations, to be exact. Youngstown had 4 train stations once upon a time. Hard to imagine, huh? But those train stations would move people between Cleveland, Pittsburgh, New York, Detroit, etc., etc., etc. So there was a lot of moving and shaking going on, if you will, back in the day. Youngstown was a major hub. It was a major jump-off spot between here, downtown Youngstown, and western Pennsylvania, to be exact. Western Pennsylvania, cities like Sharon and Mercer and Hermitage, is 10 minutes away. 10 minutes, 10 miles. Not too far at all. Matter of fact, back in the day, they had a Sharon line, train line or trolley line that ran from downtown Youngstown all the way into the city of Sharon, Pennsylvania. That's where the nickname Sharon Line came from. And those lines ran all day long on Fridays and Saturdays, and I think Sunday they closed out. Everything used to be pretty much shuttered on Sundays, where the city slowed down with the blue laws, etc. Things, people went to church more and all that, so the community, if you will, went through a lot of hustle and bustle, Saturdays going back, if you will. But Sunday was the day in which the community slowed down, okay? Now, as I continue to come this way right here, I'm shooting and I'm telling you the story of what used to be downtown Youngstown, the other half that was lost during urban renewal. So when you look at Hemrod Hill coming down here, I'm trying to name the train stations. You had the Erie, you had the New York, you had the Pennsylvania, and there's one more, and I don't want to stumble over my tongue, so to speak, and there's one more. But Youngstown had, I think you believe me, had 4 train lines, if you will, on the B&O. I can't forget the Baltimore and Ohio. Those are the railroad tracks that used to crisscross this area. A person like me would remember stopping for trains. You could get caught at Wick and Commerce Street, for example, and you could get caught at Commerce Street and Wick Avenue before you went up the hill, right beside the Nathaniel R. Jones Federal Courthouse right there. Strauss, McKelvey's was king of the day. Luxtick's, Livingston's, and shops like that littered the downtown corridor. Now imagine, there again, I want you to use your imagination with me. Half of downtown Youngstown being literally torn down. Coming down this way, you had businesses on both sides. You had side streets, you had back streets, you had alleyways, and all that. So when those bulldozers start coming in, the wrecking balls start swinging, there went the beginnings of the demise of downtown Youngstown. When a lot of people shake their head and say, well, how could that happen? How could you be a retailing mecca one minute and then the next minute everything be gone? Well, it didn't happen that quick, that fast, if you will. It didn't just happen that quick. There was the domino effects that I told you. Urban renewal dollars being offered. The building of Eastwood and Southern Park malls coming online, if you will. The building of the Federal Plaza in downtown Youngstown. And the mills closing in '77, or the beginning of the closing of the mills. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. The retailing in Niles and Boardman have been very functional, very up and very modern, if you will. And a lot of people wanted to go out to the malls and experience something brand new. and that's where they flocked to a climately controlled shopping experience, if you will. But back here, when I was a kid walking down, my mother had to have a death grip on my hand because there was so much traffic down here, human traffic, if you will. Of course, she didn't want me stepping off the curb and doing something like that and hurting myself where I get hit by a car, of course. But she didn't want to lose me in the crush of people. People would descend on downtown Youngstown to do their Christmas shopping, etc., 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 especially during Christmas season. Remember I told you that our biggest population was at the beginning of 1930. So right after 1930, the suburbs started being developed. So if I could put another nail in the coffin or add to it the demise of downtown Youngstown, as the suburbs became more and more popular and came online. Now we look at Austintown, we look at Liberty, we look at Boardman, we look at Canfield was becoming more developed, if you will. More people were moving in out there. Poland, areas like Girard, some people would cascade up the way, if you will, on the way to Warren, they would move up there. But for the most part, 5 things. I have to add that in there too. The development, if you will, of the suburbs and how the suburbs came online. That, my friends, is what led to the demise of downtown Youngstown's business, if you will. But if you look at it, and I go on the second half, you'll see a little bit of hustle bustle going on. We've had a lot of projects going on that kind of slowed down our resurgence, if you will, down here. And well, Youngstown's still coming back. I'm an optimist, and I know that Youngstown's crawling back because the Apollo Entertainment or Event Center just opened up. It used to be the Soap Gallery. A group went in there and made a major investment, and they're going to turn $1 there because that is a very fabulous place, if you will. They really went all in. They put their money in there, fancy chandeliers. Just you have to go in there. I don't want to ruin it for you. It's called the Apollo Event Center. It's on Commerce. It's on Champion Street, same street the YMCA is on, if you will. And that's where they are. Matter of fact, back in the old days, the original YMCA used to be on this half. I could throw that out there. If you look at some old photographs and you look at East Federal, you will see a tall, reddish colored building, much like the IBM building in the background there. And that's what the color of that Y was. It was that kind of stone, if you will. Like I said, some of these other buildings have been repurposed. Okay. But don't think Youngstown's a ghost town. All right, I'm back in the hunt. My camera got overheated and shut down, but I'm going to continue on as I end the conversation at Walnut Street, if you will. It's a Sunday morning, it's a Sunday evening, but we got a lot of traffic. You can almost tell by my shadow that the sun is setting on Youngstown, if you will. We got a lot of different stuff going on here. Even though it's a Sunday, you can still see there's cars making their way here and there along the corridors. We got a party van coming along doing their thing as well. Got a lot of good things going on here in the community. I'm going to attempt to walk on across here. I see the traffic is clear for me. Of course, we're looking at East Federal Street here as I continue to transverse and come this way. As I go back to Walnut and I talk about some of the things that happened in closing to our fair city and what's going on in our fair city. I mentioned the IBM building earlier. I watched that building being built when I was going to high school. I thought it was a very beautiful building back then. And there are some of the other structures that I shoot up as I cascade going down the City Center 1 building, the Standby building, which is now the hotel down there as well, the Doubletree Hotel. And then you go to First Federal Bank building as it used to be a lot of years ago, and it became Chase. That building's up for sale right now. So if you know anybody who may want to buy the old Chase Bank building downtown as it was for a lot of years, put the word out. The Youngstown, like I said, has grown and has found diversity where it didn't have. We were a one-trick pony, so to speak. Everything steel. Everything steel. But now, between education, and between medical, and between the entertainment venues, entertainment mecca attitude, a lot of different things going on in downtown Youngstown. From the de jour performing arts, which is located inside there, it's Powers Auditorium. A lot of people know the history of the building. That was a Warner Brothers theater. The Warner Brothers and family, etc., grew up in Smoky Hollow, so to speak. A lot of the boys, once they came here from Baltimore and Canada, they made their way to Youngstown, got into filmmaking, and then launched from here off into New York and Hollywood, respectively, if you will. A lot of diversity here in Youngstown, as I say. We travel a lot to our jobs. I work in Trumbull County, live here in Youngstown. For example, 25-minute commute for me. I can do it in 20 if I want to. Here in Youngstown, because when you go eastward, as I mentioned earlier, you're going into western Pennsylvania. You're going right into western Pennsylvania. I'm going to pan around at the post office again as the sun is settling fast. It's coming down fast. Eastern daylight savings time will be engaged here. We'll lose an hour, so to speak. Spring ahead, fall back, so we're gonna lose an hour. You see something, like I said, the reminiscences of the Smart 2 project. They abandoned that because the autonomous vehicles, because they have one lane on each side, there's not enough room for cars to get by at all. That would really be foolish for this autonomous vehicle to hold up cars as they're trying to get by and flow, if you will, from east to west. Remember I said how it was dammed off by the Federal Plaza project back in the day? I'm going to rotate around and let you see how these cars are making their way eastward up towards Campbell, Ohio, and Struthers, Ohio, and Coatesville, etc., Hubbard. All those communities are that way. Those are a few I mentioned of the communities that geographically border Youngstown. Remember, we have 11 communities that border Youngstown. Now I'm going to cascade back here. I'm coming to Walnut again as I'm going to end my conversation with you. I hope the fact my camera heated up didn't ruin things too much as I'm put it right there, Federal at Walnut. And on the other side of the building, I'm shooting at it, is the YMCA, and up the hill is the YWCA. Okay, and Eastern Gateway Community College recently left out this building. It is no more. They went defunct, so that entity is no longer there. Over here, looking over my right shoulder, is where my mother used to work at the Social Security office. I had mentioned that. That's the brown structure on the corner. And as I go back this way, as you're looking at, a lot of streets are still closed down here because there's a lot of work that's going on here downtown Youngstown as they continue to link Youngstown to the campus, if you will. That partnership between YSU and the campus, YSU still goes on, if you will. I'm going to walk back this way. I'm going to go right down the middle. I see cars are coming. It's a Sunday, I can get away with it. I'm going to make myself go right down the middle as I terminate the movie here. Right down here is cars as they come. They're turning right on me. That's cool. That is excellent. As I continue to walk back here, if you imagine the other half of downtown Youngstown that didn't succumb to urban renewal, and you will put that with another half of what used to be, could you imagine if we saved those structures, renovated them along the way, and things like that? How much better we'd be along the way, if you will, with our downtown commerce, opportunities for small businesses, etc., to move into those structures? Well, what used to be. The hour has got to be 6 o'clock here. I'm hearing the bells from the church go off in the background. I thank each and every one of you for coming along with me as I covered Downtown Youngstown, what happened? What led to the demise of downtown Youngstown? Remember, if you followed along with me, it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just one thing, but it was 5 profound things that happened. The dominoes start toppling, as I say, with urban renewal. All right, I'm Joseph Napier Sr. with Napier Vision Productions. I thank you for having the patience to come along with me on this walk today as I talk about what led to the demise of downtown Youngstown. Youngstown is trying to claw back, as you see. Youngstown was never truly dead as it pertains to downtown Youngstown, but they're trying to do some creative and innovative things. I pray for the current administration that they have faith and skills and intelligence and all that intelligence to pull it off and turn the city around down here as far as it remains to do, as it pertains to downtown. Take care, everybody.